What's up, YouTubers? Today I am sitting in my 2021 Subaru Legacy XT Touring, and I have owned this car for just about 1 year, and this car has lived a life. I have put 16,823 miles on it so far. I've hit one bear. It spent a month in the body shop. It got buried under snow. I've driven it from Orange County, California to Florida and back, and it's been a pretty good car. I'm going to split this video into three parts. The first part is going to be my review of this car, my 1 year ownership report of this car, as it were. Second part, we'll talk about Subaru Reliability. Third part, we'll talk about Subaru Oil Consumption. Why should you care what I think about these things? Well, this Legacy XT is my sixth Subaru personally. It's the sixth one I've had. It's the ninth one that we've had in my immediate family, and I've spent about 7 years selling Subarus. But I'm only going to talk about the reliability and the oil consumption portions of it from my personal experience. So I'll go through kind of what we've gone through on the cars that we've had. So to start with the ownership report, 1 year ownership update on the Legacy XT Touring. As I've said in the intro, this car has lived a lot in its first year on the road. I have driven it quite a bit, especially considering the fact that it did spend a month in the body shop. And I like it, but I don't love it. And in some ways I don't like it, but those ways are because this car's kind of been with me through some negative life events, and it reminds me of that, and that's not the car's fault. First and foremost, the Legacy XT Touring is a pretty rare car. Subaru doesn't make a whole lot of them. They don't sell a whole lot of them. So if you're not familiar with this model, it's the Legacy Sedan, which is the larger four-door sedan that Subaru offers with the turbo engine and all of the fancy stuff. So Sierra Tan Napa leather interior is unique to this particular car. It's got the heated and cooled seats. It's got the Harman Kardon sound. It's got the front view camera. It's fully loaded, basically. This has every luxury feature pretty much that Subaru offers on a car. I do like a lot of the features that it has. I really like the interior color. I like the fact it's a very comfortable car. This is a fantastic road trip car, and I should know because I drove it all the way across the country. Couple of niggling things that I do not like about it. First and foremost, the driver monitor camera, the little infrared camera that looks at your face. I hate that thing. It always goes off all the time, and I have to turn it off every time I start the car, the driver monitoring system. And it's like a 5-step process to turn it off and then get back to the nav, a display on the screen, which is what I like to see when I'm driving the car. So I hate that thing. I tend to kind of adopt like a 45-degree angle while I'm driving, and I'm looking straight out the window, right out the middle of the windshield, and it thinks that I'm not watching the road, and it beeps at me, and I hate it. I really like the adaptive cruise control on this car. I've used adaptive cruise control on a bunch of different cars. I think Subaru's is amongst the best. I like the engine. The engine's kind of interesting in this car because if you just drive it normally around town, it just feels like a regular 4-cylinder engine. It doesn't really feel that fast. But if you get it out on the highway and floor it, it's pretty quick. I mean, for a 4-cylinder turbo that's in sort of a non-sporting car, this is more of a luxury car at a, I think it was a $39,000 MSRP car when I bought it. It's pretty quick on the highway. I got to give it that. And I have enjoyed the performance of it. Reliability-wise, two things have gone wrong with it. First thing, the passenger side window goes up really slowly, but I don't think that's the car's fault because the door skin on that door was replaced after the bear strike. And the second thing was that the stupid battery had to be replaced in this car. And Subaru's OEM batteries are complete garbage. Here's a little tip to the wise. This is what I did, because I could have taken it to a Subaru dealer and just gotten a new Subaru battery, put in it for free. It is covered under warranty for 3 years, 36,000 miles, but then I would just have another trash Subaru battery in it. So instead, what I did was I went to AutoZone, I bought the best battery that they had for this car, I put it in myself, I called 1-800-SUBARU-3 and said, hey, my battery failed while I was out of town, And so I had to buy one from an auto parts store and replace it, and can you please reimburse me? And they had me send them the receipt, and then they sent me a check for the cost of that battery. So if you're not afraid to replace the battery yourself, that's the way to do it, because the new battery that's in the car that's not a Subaru battery is much, much better. I left this car sitting for 16 days and came back and it started right up, and not only did it start right up, but the auto start stop function started functioning right away, which meant that the car sensed that the battery had good charge on it. So if your battery fails in a Subaru and you're able to replace it yourself, I recommend doing it that way. You'll have to do the labor yourself, but who cares? I mean, I didn't care. Some people would care. Would I recommend one of these cars? Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I'm wearing my Subaru shirt. I'm kind of mad at Subaru right now because they're not gonna build another proper WRX STI. So I have a feeling that this is gonna be my last one, at least for a while. I'm gonna have to go back to work on a car lot at some point here soon. And I don't really have my eye on working on a Subaru lot. I think it's kind of played out for me personally. They are great cars. I would recommend them to a friend or a family member, but this is my 6th Subaru lease in a row. And I think I'm just maybe kind of over it, and I'm kind of ready for something different. But yeah, overall, it's been a very good car. Good in parts, better in others. I don't know. Let's talk about something else. Okay, so Subaru Reliability. Now, you can read all day long on the internet of horror stories with any brand of car that you want, and you can also find people that'll tell you that every insert make here ever made is a complete perfect work of art and nothing ever goes wrong with them. And the truth really lies somewhere in the middle. All I can do with this is tell you my experience in my own family and my own life with the Subarus that we've had. First one was a 2004 WRX hatchback finished in silver that belonged to my father. I think he put about 80,000 miles on that car before he got rid of it, and the only thing that ever went wrong with it was he lived up in Tahoe, and the roads can get kind of bad up there with the snow and the snow plows, and he hit a really bad pothole kind of fast, and it bent a part of the suspension. And the car was it was still kind of new. It had less than 36,000 miles on it at the time, and he went to the Subaru dealer they bought it from, and he said, "I don't know what happened. It's like driving kind of weird." And they were like, "Oh yeah, the suspension piece bent," and they fixed it for him under warranty. So that wasn't really the car's fault. That was environmental issues maybe, or user error, depending on how you want to look at it. But that's the only thing that ever went wrong with that car. The next Subaru we had in the family was my first one, which is a 2010 Impreza 2.5i Premium that had the EJ25 engine, the 4-speed automatic. The only thing that went wrong with that car, and it was kind of weird, was when it had about 31,000 miles on it, I was driving it and the check engine light came on, and when that happens on a Subaru, all the other lights come on too, so your dash is lit up like a Christmas tree. And I was working at a Subaru dealer at the time, so the next day I took it to the service drive. Tech looked at it, and some sort of oil pressure sensor or something in the engine had failed, and that was what set off the check engine lights. There was nothing actually wrong with the engine itself, it was just that sensor. So he replaced the sensor and everything was fine, and that was covered under warranty, so that wasn't a real big deal. I think I put 44,000 miles on that first Impreza, so that was the only thing that ever went wrong with that one. Second Subaru I had was a 2013 Legacy 2.5i Premium. That was the first year of the newer FA series of engines, so the timing chain motor. Nothing ever went wrong with that car. I put 52,000 miles on that car. It was fantastic. I love that thing. I actually liked that car better than this one, and it was anywhere near as nice as this. It was just a premium with the heated seats, and I'd had leather put in it, so it didn't have cloth. It was Venetian red with the beigey leather, and I just loved that car. Yeah, nothing ever went wrong with it, so that was a good one. The third Subaru I had was my 2016 Forester XT Premium, so that was the turbo, back when they still made the turbo Foresters. That was the only one I ever ordered from the factory. I ordered that car, it was dark gray metallic, got the color I wanted, got the accessories I wanted, and when it had about 480 miles on it, I guess Subaru had gotten a bad batch of VDC control modules, the vehicle dynamics control, like the anti-skid system and the traction control system. The control module for that failed, and the car was put in limp home mode, so it would only do like 20 miles an hour, and it was in the shop for like a week getting fixed. I think because they had a little issue getting the part for it was why it was in the shop for a while. That was the only problem I ever had with that one, and that was kind of a freak occurrence, I think, but I guess it happened to a few of them because they had gotten a bad batch of those control modules. So that was that. I didn't like that one very much. I only put about 26,000 miles on that, and I traded it in for a WRX STI 2017. I still miss that car. I loved that car. The only thing, I was going through, this was after I got rid of the car. Well, I lease returned it. I still regret that, but whatever. It was right after I got laid off from the pandemic, and these things happen. But the only thing that ever went wrong with that car, and I didn't even realize it had gone wrong, I was going through like the maintenance records from when I would take it in and get it serviced, and like one wheel bolt post or something seized, and it was replaced under warranty, and I didn't even know this. It was like the thing you put the lug nut on. I guess one of those needed to be replaced, and it was done under warranty just when I took it in for a regular oil change. I didn't even realize that was an issue. They just handled it, so whatever. So really nothing to my thinking ever went wrong with that one. I put about 37,000 miles on my WRX STI. Then I got my 2020 Impreza that we still have. My sister drives that car now. It's almost at 24,000 miles. Nothing's ever gone wrong with that one. And then this one, as I mentioned earlier, so this one's got 16,823 miles. There's an issue with the passenger side window. It rolls down normal, and then it kind of depends on the temperature. The colder it is, the slower it is to roll up at the top. But I don't know if that's the car's fault, because that door skin was replaced on this car after I hit a bear. So that may be an issue with the body shop repair job that was done, and I don't really care about this car enough to deal with it, to be honest with you. This is a lease, and there's 0% chance that I'll keep it. And there's a higher % chance I'll get rid of it before the lease is over. And then I had to replace the battery on this car because Subaru's OEM batteries are kind of trash. My mother has had two Foresters. The first one was a 2017 that I think she put 32,000 miles on it. The only thing that ever went wrong with that car was a battery. It needed its battery replaced at some point, randomly. And then she's got a 2021 Forester now that she's had for probably 20 months. I don't think anything's gone wrong with that one. She hasn't had any issues with that one, and it's probably got 15,000 miles on it. So overall, I mean, we haven't kept any of our Subarus in my family super long term. I think my dad's WRX probably had the most miles out of any of them that we have had and gotten rid of. But we've had a lot of them, you know, and little things will go wrong, but like never left me stranded. You know, I consider them to be reliable cars. I recommend them to my friends and family members if I think it's an appropriate choice for what they're looking for in a vehicle, or if it suits their tastes. So I would say, you know, some people get so knotted up in their minds about what they're reading online, like, oh my God, I read that it burns oil. I read that the windshield's going to explode. I read that... Stop reading stuff on the internet, please. As a rule of thumb about everything, ignore the internet, except for my YouTube videos. They're all 100% legit. Everything else is trash on the internet, okay? Stop reading it. You're probably going to be fine if you buy a new Subaru, okay? Take it from me. I've done it 6 times. All right, baby, let's talk about the big one. Oil consumption. Because this is what everybody's concerned with about Subarus, because there's so much stuff on the internet. And really, there's stuff on the internet about every single automaker. You could type in Porsche oil consumption, Toyota oil consumption, Honda oil consumption. You'll find stuff out there. Subaru's boxer engine design has a lot of benefits. One of the drawbacks is boxer engines are a little bit more likely to burn oil. So let's go through it, because I pay attention to my own cars very closely. First one, 2010 Impreza, 2.5i EJ25 single overhead cam, 4-cylinder with the 4-speed automatic. Back in 2010, when that car was built, the oil change interval per Subaru as the manufacturer was 7,500 miles. Like clockwork, that car burned 1 quart of oil every 7,500 miles. I'd keep an eye on it. I'd check the oil level every 1,000 miles or so, top it off. Would go through a quart every 1,000 miles, every time. Second car, 2013 Legacy 2.5i. That was the newer design of engine with the dual overhead cams and the timing chain, FA25, I think they called that one. That one would burn 0.6 of a quart every 7,500 miles, like clockwork. 0.6 of a quart, 7,500 miles. Third Subaru I had was the Forester XT 2016, turbo 2-liter direct fuel injection. That one I figured was going to burn more oil because turbos and direct fuel injection can be two things that can potentially encourage an engine to consume a little bit more oil. Now, by the time I got that one, Subaru as a manufacturer had shortened their oil change intervals from 7,500 miles to 6,000 miles. The reason they did that, there was no actual change in the hardware that they were manufacturing. The reason that they did that is because they got hit with a class action lawsuit about certain year, I believe it was Legacies and Outbacks, and actually my 2013 Legacy came in that year range. I used to get letters about it, but I never participated in this class action lawsuit because what am I going to get, $10? And so there was a class action lawsuit about oil consumption on those cars. So Subaru said, okay, change the oil more often, which fair enough, but if people checked their oil religiously, not even religiously, just every 1,000 miles and topped it off, I believe you could go 10,000 miles in between oil changes on one of these cars. That's not what the manufacturer recommends, so I'm not telling you to do that. But if you did it that way, if you were diligent about checking your oil and making sure the level was topped off, you could have a longer oil change interval if you wanted to. So anyway, back to my 2016 Forester XT. Never burned a drop. Surprised the hell out of me because I figured that it would burn at least as much as my Legacy and, you know, maybe more, but never burned any oil. Didn't consume any oil in between oil changes. That was surprising to me. Next one, my WRX STI. Back to the EJ engine. The WRX STI at that time was still on the EJ25, dual overhead cam, turbo. I figured, okay, this thing's going to burn oil. It really didn't. The most it ever burned in 6,000 miles was 1/3 of a quart, and it was inconsistent. Sometimes it didn't burn any. Occasionally, it would burn 1/3 of a quart. So yeah, that one was not a big oil consumer. And if any of them would have burned oil, I would have guessed it would be that one. But it really depends on conditions sometimes. For example, the next one I got after the STI was my 2020 Impreza with the 2.0 non-turbo direct fuel injection FA20. First oil change was at 6,000 miles, and I had to add like a half a quart of oil. But that first 6,000 miles, the majority of it was me driving back and forth from Orange County, California to South Lake Tahoe, up 395 and Monitor Pass. And Monitor Pass, when you go over the pass, it's like 9,200 feet. So uphill, downhill, and so it burned some oil. Second oil change that I checked on it, which was right before I passed it on to my sister, hadn't burned any. So first time, I had to put a half a quart. The second one, it didn't burn any oil. So I wasn't driving up that crazy hill as much, so it didn't burn the oil. I think that's what happened. So that's something to consider, you know. First of all, not every car is built equal. Sometimes, you know, one engine might burn oil, the next one that came off the line doesn't burn any. That can certainly happen. A lot of it's also down to your driving style and where you're driving. If you're driving up and downhill all the time, you may consume a little bit more oil. If you're a very aggressive driver, you may consume a little bit more oil. It just is what it is. This car, the Legacy XT Touring with the 2.4 liter turbo engine with 260 horsepower. In the first 2 oil changes, I checked it, no oil consumption that I could see. I just checked it now, and my last oil change was done at Sewell Subaru of Dallas, and it would have been done at 12,149 miles. I've got 16,823 now, so I've got about 4,700 miles, and it did look like it was down a little bit. I didn't add any oil because I don't have any in the car. It looks like it could use maybe a third of a quart, so this one might have burnt a little bit in between this oil change. But typically, from the first 2 oil changes that I checked the oil before having them done, this car doesn't really seem to burn oil, and if it is burning oil, it's not burning very much. So, and I haven't paid enough attention to my dad's WRX when he had it way back in the day, or my mom's 2 Foresters, to be able to comment on them. I don't know about the oil consumption on those. I'm just telling you what I've experienced in the 6 Subarus that I've owned. I've never had one that I would have considered to be like a gross consumer of oil. The worst offender was my old 2010 Impreza, and 1 quart every 7,500 miles is not bad. Most manufacturers will tell you 1 quart every 1,000 miles is considered normal operation. For me personally, I would not consider that normal. That's way too much. But manufacturers just say that. It's kind of a CYA thing. You know, well, it says in your owner's manual this is normal. So yeah, I've never seen massive oil consumption on Subarus. They will burn a little bit of oil, but a lot of cars will. And it's not a bad thing to check your oil, folks. You know, when you're filling up with gas, every 3rd time you fill the tank, pop the hood, check the dipstick, see if it needs oil, put a little oil in. It's not the end of the world. You know, it's not going to kill you. So anyway, that's my experience with my 2021 Legacy XT, Subaru Reliability in general, and Subaru oil consumption in general. I love Subarus. I do. I think it's just... My father died. The night I hit the bear was because I was driving up to see him because he got sick. He was in the hospital. And he ended up dying. And I can remember sitting in this car right after he passed away, holding my mom's little dog, and just looking at the dash at 2:30 in the morning in the parking lot of a hospital. And when I sit in this car, that kind of comes back. And that's not the car's fault, you know, and you don't even need to know this, but it's just a personal thing. So if it came across like I don't really like this particular Subaru and that I'm kind of over Subarus in general, that's why. I do think I want something different. And I don't even drive this car that much. I drive my Crown Vic. Even though gas is like $7 a gallon. When I'm in town, stick with the Crown Vic. But I would recommend a Subaru to a family member or friend who's looking for a good car. I mean, I do believe in the product. I sold them for many years, and I always felt like putting somebody in a Subaru is doing them a favor. That was my personal opinion about it. And I put my money where my mouth was. I drove them too, you know, so it's not like I was being disingenuous about saying any of that. But yeah, I'm ready for something different, I think, and I'll get rid of this car whenever it kind of makes sense to get rid of it. It's a very nice car, but it's one of those things. So anyways, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to. I don't know, I don't care. Do whatever you want to do. Bye-bye.